Welcome to Improv Your Parenting, the art of turning parenting into play. Today we're joined by Jay Sukow. Jay has been performing with and without a script for over 30 years. He lives in LA with his wife and 4 kids, plus a cat, not his, and he loves his friends, improv, and the Beastie Boys. Thank you so much for joining us today. The first question I have for you is, how do you interact with kids? And what role does improv play in that interaction?
I interact with my kids different than if it's like a setting where it's a class for kids specifically. A class for kids is a lot more difficult for me because of the energy needed to interact with kids. I had a friend who was teaching a camp for kids, and I go, "How's the camp going?" He goes, "Oh, it's good. It's a lot of this. Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys, hey guys, hey guys, hey." And I think that's completely accurate. And because kids are such an honest audience as well, like they'll tell you, "I'm bored." Like even during shows, if you do a show for kids, an improv show, they'll be like, "Boo, I'm bored." So they're of such an honest audience. I use improv all the time with my own kids. And sometimes it's, let's play an improv game. Like we'll be in the car. We used to do that game Mind Meld, which like you say a word and they say a word and then you try and find words in between, but they would always say pizza. They're like, "Let's play Mind Meld." And they would just always be like, "Pizza." And that was the
make
worst.
it easy.
Yeah, it's super easy. But so I use it like there are times where we play improv games. My kids are 9 and my son's almost 12. They both had improv in school already. So it's a different than when I've grown up. Like they've taken improv, they've had improv games and exercises in class. Like they've done it. So it's pretty great that now it's that known and that used that a lot of kids are like, "Yeah, we've done improv in school." So they understand games. They understand what that is. They understand what I do. I'll be like, "Have you told your parents or your teachers what I do?" And they're like, "No." They won't say that I do improv, but they do it in class. But there are moments where we'll play an improv game or we'll use a lot of the improv skills and tools like in just situations that they're going through. When my son is anxious or he's sad or struggling, he won't say, "I'm sad," but he will say, "Will you play with me?" That is improv 100%. He'll want to play and he'll want to do a game of some sort.
You're a teacher, you're a coach. Did you set out when you had kids to say, "I'm infusing improv into this," or is it just a natural, "Of course, let me do this thing I do"?
Yeah. How can you not? Right?
Yeah.
And even if you haven't taken improv, like what I've learned as a teacher and having students in class, mostly adults, is they'll say, "Oh, what we're doing now is, oh, okay, I didn't know it was called improv." So it's as a parent, you're improvising 24/7. As if you're a teacher, you're improvising 20. If you're in business, everyone's improvising. Our whole life is improv. So like you might not have said, "We're going to play this improv game." You might have done something which you learn later is an improv game. It's just you didn't know that's what it was called. So as a parent, you are improvising 24/7. And the best advice I got as an improv teacher when I was early on teaching is somebody said, "Over prepare, then throw it away when you get in the room." The same with parenting. Like you're going to use all these skills and things, and then you're going to get face to face with situations and you'll have no idea how to, you couldn't have prepared, but it's there. You'll understand how to do it. There's a lot of things, especially early on as a parent, where I was like, "Oh, I was never trained for this or at about this." And then you come out of it with some things that are, I think, just built into us as caregivers. And so it's the best advice I got as a parent was I was in the emergency room after my son was born and he had to go to the NICU, the intensive care, just for a couple of days. It wasn't anything dangerous. It was just his sugar levels. And the ER nurse said, "Don't read anything. Don't go online. Don't read books." She said, "Turn to parents you respect who have kids who are, in your opinion, good, well-behaved kids, or and talk to them about how they did it. And then observe the parents who aren't good and don't do the things they do." And that was the best advice.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And that leads to a question of, what were the influences on you growing up? Was improv a part of that journey? Was play a part of that journey with your parents? Or did you come to that on your own later?
I think each parent, it's kind of cliche, but I think each parent does do their best with what they have
Yeah.
and can either be like I saw this analogy. You can either be like a drill sergeant or like a helicopter parent or like a consultant. And I think my parents were more helicopter drill sergeant parents because that was of the day. That was it. It's like you told people what to do, you told your kids what to do, or you protected them as much as you could. And then it evolved to being more like, if you do, this is what will come of it. If you get on that chair, you will fall and or you might fall and it might hurt this time. It's up to you to make that decision. And so as a kid, I was more sheltered. So when I finally got on my own, it wasn't good because I was so sheltered and so afraid that I went to the other end, and it took me a while to figure out how to navigate situations. And the same with being in class. When you're in a class and you're not allowed to ask questions or experiment, fail, or you were punished for failing, you never really grew. And I think games are the time where we grow, we creative problem solve, we understand how to work with other people, all the things that improv reinforces. I think Viola Spolin said it. She's the high priestess of improv. She said, there's not a problem a game can't solve. And
Yeah.
so when I'm stuck as a parent or as an improv teacher, I go back to Viola Spolin. I pull out her book or Neva Boyd, and I'm like, all right, how can I help in this situation? Whether it's in the classroom teaching or with my own kids, I'm like, is there a game they're struggling with? Can I help them with that? I was born in 1970. And so the 70s and 80s as a kid, it was a different time. Even now where I'm like, oh my goodness, I had babysitters who were 11 or 10. The thought of having my kids with somebody that young is strange. I do have a friend who I think he was 10 and his mom had an 11-year-old babysit him. And he's,
What's the point?
Yeah. It's the point. So I think I do think they do their best. I think some are more prepared than others, but I think there are different styles. And sometimes I joke with my kids and I'll say this to them. I'll be like, stop acting your appropriate age because they're doing things to push boundaries and test things. And I'll be like, this is exactly how you should be behaving. Stop it. I want you to be older. And it's like, it's true. The cliche, they grow up very quickly. You can adapt and adjust and learn. And my parents never apologized. I didn't know how to apologize. So that's another thing being a parent is there are times where I've had to say, hey, that was wrong, or I'm sorry. And I never remember that happening to me as a kid from my parents.
Wow. So it sounds like on your journey, you've learned a lot outside of that parental experience that you received. And you've also had a lot of opportunities with your kids to bring what you know, what you do regularly into that interaction. Can you tell me about a time where you realized, you know what, play or improv or role play is going to be really useful here? And it actually turned out to be the case?
Oh, and it's not always just fun in that sense. And I think people think of play and they think frivolous. And I think there's a use of that also. But I think there's a time to be frivolous and play for 100%. I think as we become adults, play gets knocked out of our lives and we are no longer in play. And there's a great theory of play versus game, which is there's rules, there's an objective. In a career, you have game, you're trying to climb the ladder and you aren't at play, which is when you're most vulnerable. But there are, and you learn a lot and it's helpful. We all need a release. So with my kids specifically, we role play conversations that can be difficult and situations. My daughter's 9. And she, in the 3rd grade, what I've learned from my stepdaughter, who is now 19, and other people, they say 3rd grade for a girl is very difficult for some reason. Cliques start to form. There start to be rumors and back and forth. And so I've had to have conversations with my daughter. We'll role play. What's going to happen with this person? What has been the situation? Or my son, it's been like, you have a stern teacher. He has one fun teacher and one stern teacher, and they're both great. But it's like the fun teacher is easy to talk to. How do you advocate for yourself with a stern teacher? He's got accommodations for where he can retake a test if he it gets a grade that's like a C or below. So it's like, how do you advocate for yourself? I can't do it. I can't go in and talk to the teacher, and I don't want to. I want him to. So we'll role play conversations and we'll talk about what's the fear? What is the thing you're afraid of happening? And I won't judge him and say that's silly. It's just, no, what's the fear? So let's role play a scenario like that. We play new choice without me saying we're going to play new choice. Let's have what's another way you could do that? So we use these devices in improv games and it makes it easier. And it's never as bad as we think it's going to be. It really isn't. It never is for us as kids or adults. It's always like we build up these things in our mind of how bad it's going to be. And the same with improv auditions or shows. You build up how it's going to be awful. And it's like, it never is. But we have this mindset. So what I'm trying to do is give them tools and mindset of like, how could this happen? How could this work? What's the word? What are you afraid of? What's the anxiety behind this? How can we have this conversation with this person? Also, you're dealing with this person at school who is a friend one day, an enemy the next. Okay, what do you think is happening? What could be going on with them while they're having this situation, right? What's going on with you right now? So we use these not just in playing silly games, which I think there's a value in, but also in approaching those situations in life that are difficult and conversations that are difficult.
Yeah, that's one of the big things that I've been asking a lot of folks is, you're not out there necessarily just to be laughing all the time, to be playing as the frivolity that you mentioned, but you could use this in lots of different scenarios, whether it's a death in the family to interaction with people at school to with teachers, as you were talking about. And so where do you see your priority as a parent in terms of these interactions? What are you trying to achieve with enabling your kids to have these powers?
Oh, yeah. I think what I'm trying to do is also similar to what I try to do as an improv teacher is here's a bunch of tools. I want to expose you to as many of these tools as possible. And I want you to come up with tools on your own. I don't have all the answers. I have no answers. I just repeat things I've heard other people say. I don't have anything original, but I want to give you a tool belt. Now go make the choice. And don't make the choice what I would make in this situation. Make the choice and see how it works out for you. So take these tools of taking a pause and a breath before you respond, which I talk to my kids about all the time. Take these tools of, yeah, you're bored. Most of your life, you're going to be bored. I get it. What can you do in that situation? Take these tools of, hey, before I take this thing personally that they're saying, let me think about where they're coming from. Take these tools of, great idea, Jeremy. I'm going to add to it. Or great idea. I want to hear more. Take these tools of being in the moment, listening, not predicting what's going to happen, not worst case scenario spinning out of control, right? So take all these tools and then see which one works. And it's going to be different each time. Same with improv. You're like, oh, I've made this move before. Why isn't it working now? It's not working because it's a different audience. It's a different time. It's a different situation. It's a different energy. So and to take moments to really look at things as a gift and the positive, like it doesn't mean you ignore the negative. It's more like, how do I come out of this when it's a stressful situation? Like, how can I look at it as from a positive lens and not just go, this is dumb. This is stupid. I hate this. Like I talk to my son about that a lot because it'll be like, yeah, it's difficult. What are we learning from it? What are we taking from it? And the next time you're faced with that situation, what do you want to do different? So all of those moments of taking each thing you're learning, learning from people as much as you can, be a student, be curious, right? Replace a judgment with curiosity. And then you're in a situation, I'm going to try this tool. And I'm going to try this tool that doesn't seem natural to me. It's because it's unfamiliar to you. I'm going to go up and talk to this teacher. It's not natural for me to do it. Familiarity makes it easier. So if you keep doing it, it gets easier. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's just, oh, I'm familiar and it's easier. So I want them to have these tools. And then eventually I want them to not have to need me, but can come to me if they want and not necessarily rely on, you just tell me the answer, Dad.
Those sound like very worthy priorities. And it sounds like you're setting your kids up to be resilience in terms of whatever they experience.
Yeah.
Have your kids turned improv on you in any way where you were, I'm angry, we're going to do this thing. And they're like, no, we're going to play a game instead and diffuse the situation from their side?
No, I'm perfect. Perfect. Of course. And there are moments that I think it's easier for me to change, realizing that I'm someone that is modeling behavior, that it's easier than if it was just on my own. And there are times where I'll walk away, honestly, and I'll talk to my wife and I say, I feel like I'm failing them. There's situations that are high emotional intensity. And I'm like, I feel like I'm just failing these kids. And we all know examples of terrible parents where the kids turned out healthy, mature, emotionally evolved, and situations with parents that were amazing and the kids turned out awful. So you reminding myself, this is all short-term, moment to moment. And I am divorced. So I also work with my kid's mom. So I'm in a co-parenting situation. I'm lucky enough to have a wife who's an amazing parent. So navigating co-parenting with then a third parent coming in, it's not easy. And I get it. You have to continually look at it from other people's point of view. And you want to be like, but I want to be heard. I want someone to tell me I'm right. I want you to co-sign my BS. I want you to agree with me. And sometimes they do. And sometimes what you're saying, you might want to reevaluate that. But so I'm in a very lucky situation.
You brought up something right there that I think is really important to hear. And you said you have to navigate and balance between the I want to be heard and I need to meet them where they are, what they're dealing with. I want to dive into that a little bit because it seems as if a lot of parents, their own self needs often get in the way of the relationship that they have with their kid.
Of course.
And does improv in any way offer lessons of how to step back from that or how to let that go to allow you to have that interaction, those relationships?
You're talking about acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Improvise the scene you're in, not the one you want to be in.
Yeah.
But it's hard because our egos are involved. And we talk about leaving your ego at the door, which is we have these pithy, great sayings. And it's, yep, but now do it. And
it's so hard to do it. Yeah.
It's so hard to do it. And I learned especially during the pandemic, it's like, oh, I have to start listening to things I very easily tell other people to do. I have to listen to it like being in the moment. It's like, I got to, all this stuff. It's so easy for me to tell other people to do it. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to do it. So those moments where you say, okay, what would I tell a student in this situation? That always, or if this was my best friend going through this and they said, give me advice, what would I tell them to do? And I think those are ways to approach these situations, but it's hard because you have an ego. You want to be heard. It's very hard not to look at it like a game and be like, especially when not only are you dealing with my kids or dealing with kids, also there is a co-parent sometimes involved in situations. So you have to go, how do I respect their house, their boundaries when it's not congruent with what mine are? How do I say that's what they are choosing to do? And I have to be okay with that because I have to trust their mother in this situation. And I have to say, even if I have this knee-jerk reaction, I have to say, she is concerned about their well-being as much as I am. So the same thing in improv scene. Sometimes it's like, I want to blurt something out. You got to sit on that. I have a personal pet peeve, Jeremy, with people who are like, my character, that's just what my character would say. It's like, you're in charge of your character. So your character doesn't have to say that stupid racist thing or that mean thing. And you're like, but that's my character. I said, no, it's a fictitious character. You can censor and edit yourself. And we should also do that as parents, is you have to take that, oh, I'm feeling that emotional reaction right now. And also with kids, they got nothing better to do. So if you want to struggle with kids, they're like, I don't have a job. I will fight you on this thing. And I've had to be like, even as a young kid, my daughter, my son, I could say from a young age, stop walking. He'll stop. My daughter's, oh, this is going to be a fun game. I'm going to run into the street. It's been that way their whole life. It's
Yeah.
going to serve both of them well, but I
Yeah.
have to remind myself this is not a battle and I can't keep score. Same with my ex, my kids' parents. Can't keep score. Can't be like she's got one up on me. I've got to do. Gotta let that stuff go. Be in the moment. Keep moving forward. That's the best thing. And it's hard because we're human. We're all human.
So it sounds like the relationship, taking a step back and recognizing, or at least asking what's going on, what are the drivers for that?
Yeah.
And then what is going to fit in this space to allow us to whatever the outcome is.
And I might screw it up. And logically, here's my answer. Emotionally, you're dealing with emotional beings.
Yes.
And it logically makes sense, but emotionally, we're not there.
Yeah. Yeah. And we often then are confronted with crap. I tried this thing. It didn't work. Now I got to come up with something else. And how do you then maintain that I'm the parent? We're going to try to play, but also there needs to be some form of, please don't run in the street, authority to have that balance between safety, parenting, and relationship interaction.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's the question.
It's annoying.
Honestly, right? It's like, what is the answer? I don't know. I don't know. I know in certain situations, some things have helped. I know in situations where, if there's a car coming down the street and they're running in, I'm screaming and I'm running after them to get them. But how many of those situations pop up that are like life threatening, like really dangerous versus the situations that are like, in my mind, this is going to be worst case scenario.
So many more of the second one.
So many more of the second one, but we're so creative. No matter who you are, you're very creative. Even people are like, I'm not creative. No, you're creative. You might not fit into the mold of what you consider artistic. But then again, somebody told us we weren't artistic and then we stopped believing we were.
Yes.
So if I asked a room of adults, how many of you can sing? Some would raise their hand. How many of you can dance? Some would. But if I ask 5-year-olds, everybody does. So we can all see that. So the same thing. We're all very creative. So creativity also comes into play in anxiety because we think of the worst. Oh my gosh, I also think of, is this the moment that they're going to be in therapy? They're going to remind us. They're going to remember this. We told them they couldn't have cake. Is this the moment that's going to, years later in therapy? Joel Bland was my neighbor in Chicago when I lived there 15 years ago. And he said, you're going to do something to screw up your kids. And it was advice I think is great. And you just try your best. And I remember watching his wife, Kathleen, their daughter was in the car screaming because they wanted ice cream. And Kathleen said to the daughter, I want ice cream too. I know. Yeah. We just can't have it. And I want it so bad. I get it. And the daughter stopped crying. And I was like, oh my God, they just want to be heard. They just want to be heard. They want to be heard. And they can say, if you, like every human, if you hear them, and that's the yes and. I hear you. Yes and I hear you. And then you say no, it's different than if you say no right away. So it's, I hear you. Yeah, man, I get it. I know you want to watch TV. I get it. We just can't right now. Or instead of saying, if that TV doesn't turn off in 5 minutes, you're going to get trouble. Instead of saying that, you might say, hey, if you can get done in 4 minutes and go up to your bed and get ready, here's going to be the reward for that. Like a positive reinforcement. My daughter does not respond well at all to those moments of threats and consequences. Yeah. She'll be like, fine. You know what? I'm in trouble. Screw it. I'm going to get in all the trouble. That's how she handles things, which I get because I've been there. She does respond to, hey, if you can do this, we'll do this. Yeah. And it's just a different approach.
You talked about the differences between your son and your daughter and how they approach things and how you thus approached them. How did you recognize, here's what works for this one, and here's what doesn't work for this one? And then how have you adjusted who you are in those moments to allow for the most effective interaction between yourself?
Yeah, these are all great questions. You constantly are adjusting in the moment. You're learning as you go. Yeah. And you're like, and another thing is talk to them Ask your kids. They've got the answer. So you say, what does it, I've talked to my daughter and said, is it hard when there are consequences? She goes, yeah, everything's a consequence is all negative. We go, okay. And then it's trial and error, like improv. And you go, oh, that worked. And then sometimes you're like, I got the plan. We agreed to it and it doesn't work.
No.
And you have to, above all else, have empathy for you as a parent and be like, man, you're doing your best. You're learning. You walk away and you go, that didn't work. Like an improv scene, you're like, that didn't work. But you say it doesn't really matter in the scheme of things because you're trying to be your genuine, authentic self. I'm different. My son and daughter have different needs and I'm a complex human being. So I'm not disingenuous. It's just, I know this works with him at times and this works with her at times. And we are like, okay, my daughter, they both also they can't just be sent to bed. They need a few minutes in bed to wind down. So we go, okay, so we adjust the bedtime. We're like, now my daughter goes up before my son because if they go up at the same time, they fight to brush their teeth. They fight. And that's part of so you get in these patterns, like improv is great at recognizing patterns. So we're in this pattern. So how do you break the pattern? In improv, when you break the pattern, the game's done or laughter ensues. With kids, you go, how do we break the pattern? My daughter's younger, so we're going to send her up first. She's going to have her alone time because they share a room in both households. They're going to go up and we go, okay, this is working right now. But like in improv, you can't go, hey, this is going to work all the time, which is improvisers do. They go, oh, that works. So each time I'm going to do that thing. And it's like, you can't. You just have to learn from that and adapt and adjust in the moment. And then give yourself some empathy when you screw up and be like, I screwed up. And learn. For me, it's like I have to learn to go, I'm sorry, that didn't work out. Or man, I really blew it. I am so sorry.
You've mentioned that twice now, that coming back. Do you do that with your kids where you actually come back to them and say, you know what? I didn't do the right thing there. And can we try that again? Or next time I'm going to do this. What worked? What didn't work in that interaction? You actually go and have that conversation.
Yeah. For me, it's got to be when the emotional temperature is lowered for me, for that. And sometimes it's the next day. Sometimes it's like the same day. It depends on where we are. And I might say, oh man, I really overreacted in that sense. Or I might say, do you know why my voice changed? Do you know why my tone changed? Do you know why I was upset? Or do you know why I yelled? And I might say, this is why I did it. I might say it wasn't appropriate. I might say, I think it wasn't appropriate how you handled the situation. And I might come in and go, do you know what happened? I think if you lead with questions and curiosity, it's a better technique than if you come in and say, here's what happened, to get their sense on it too. The same with an improv scene when I'm in class and I'll look at a scene and as a teacher, and I'll be like, I don't know why this isn't working. I have no idea. So I'll be like, what do you think? Because I really am curious to be like, you're in it. You're in the moment. You're in the scene. What do you think? Because I get a lot more insight that way rather than I don't want to be put on a pedestal as a teacher or a parent to say, you've got the answers. Shower us with the answers. I really don't know. So like the questions you're asking, I can give my insight or my experience. But yeah, how do you balance play? And I don't know. I don't know. It's different.
And I think that's one of the key things you're actually demonstrating that I wanted to get to here. And I love that you're bringing this in without me calling it out, is that you're not going to be right all the time. And you're going to just be like, that didn't work. And cool. How do I learn from that? And so next time I might be better. It might not work again and make a different choice. Maybe that's something that is a lesson for this. Could it be that allowing yourself that grace is not just okay, but very useful?
Yeah. And it would be interesting to ask the kids also to be like what they think, because I'm only seeing it through my lens. They might have a different take on it as well. And then there might be a third take from an unbiased observer watching the interaction. I do think having that grace to, and also swallowing your ego to say, I think I handled that wrong because I want them more than them forgiving me. I want them moving forward to exhibit those behaviors and to be able to say in situations, I messed up and to see it's okay to say that. We talk about this all the time, like in improv, mistakes are gifts and failures are okay. And it's okay to make those. And some of them are more severe than others, right? Some of them are like, oh yeah, that's something that's going to be harder to come back from. And some aren't, but to be able to say, be okay with yourself. Yeah, you messed up. It's not, and I tell my son this because he's struggling a little bit in math because math is very difficult right now because as a kid, there's one way to do it. And now there's several ways and the teachers want you to learn different ways. And thank goodness there's YouTube where I can go on YouTube and find out how to teach math to a sixth grader, which I don't understand. But I said, it's not that I care about the grades. I don't care about that. I want you to understand the process and understand what is your teacher asking of you. So in this situation, you can provide that. It's only going to be through at the end of high school where you have to do it a certain way that the teacher wants, because he can get the answer, but it's no, the teacher wants you to show the work. I get why you don't want to show the work, but that's a requirement. And that's something you're going to have to learn throughout your life is people are going to require things of you that you don't want to do, or you think is stupid, or you're like, why are we doing this? It's like you have to learn how to do it because that's the yes and to what they're wanting. So I want them to learn from me, and I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I want them to learn ways to say, I'm sorry, or let's try that again, because I was never taught that. I was taught, I'm the mom. That's why. Why did we do this way? I'm the mom. That's why. That was the answer. My dad, who was like, later, I'm going to be in a different floor in this house. So the emotional distance, so I was like, I guess this is how you do things. I'm trying to learn how to do it as much as they're trying to learn it as well.
So getting back then to your improv and parenting journey, was it improv that allowed you to come to the place where you are now, where you're like, these abilities to give yourself the grace, these abilities to say, I'm sorry, I screwed that up and let's try it again different next time. Was that from improv or was that from something else that just happens to coincide with some of the teachings that improv provides?
I think it's a little of everything. I think it's partially also seeing other people do it, even like in movies or TV shows, or just seeing examples of it. Or again, going back to how does that person parent? Kathleen said, I understand you want ice cream. I do too. We just can't have it right now. I'm going to put that in my back pocket. That's a tool I'm going to use. So seeing other people do it and then sometimes doing it yourself with no examples, but it was somewhere inside of me. And maybe it's a primal instinct of protection or something. So being able to take all of these influences I have, and if you're like doing improv, if your only experience doing improv is watching other improv shows, you don't bring anything to the stage. If my only experience as a parent is relying on my parents, I don't have as much. Now, my parents did great things as parents. Saw an improv show. I was graduating college. It was my last semester. And then I started taking improv classes around that time. And I'm like, I don't know if there's a career, but I want to keep doing it. And they're like, we don't care. Just you're so close to finishing your degree, get your degree. And you're like, but they were like, we don't care what my dad, I'll never forget. My dad 35 years ago was like, I don't care if you dig a ditch, just do your best and be happy. That's all I care about. So I was lucky in that sense. So my parents also provided a lot. They're like, sure, do this thing that nobody knows about, whatever. And they would come to all my shows and my parents would come to my shows. And the first show I ever did, we played the game Day in the Life, which is you interview an audience member and you replay their day and you heighten it. And so the person we talked to went fishing that day in Lake Michigan. So I come out during the replay and I'm a fish and my buddy Ed pulls me on stage and then continues to hit me with the bat. And it was super funny. And every show my parents would go to after that, when they'd ask for a suggestion, they would say, do the fish thing. Like, they didn't quite understand. But like that would be their suggestion because it was so funny, but it was like, no, it's improv, but they didn't care. They were very supportive of that from my parents is they would support me unconditionally, whatever it was. And they'd never be like, oh, you can't do that because you gave up on this thing once. So we don't want you to do that. Or you can't do that because it's theater and that's not a legit job. They did. So I take that from them. So I take a little thing from my wife has twins, 19-year-old boy-girl twins who are also very different and very similar. So I take her parenting style and things she does into my toolkit. And then you have to forgive yourself in the moment when emotions run high and you throw all that out the window and your lizard brain takes over and you're like, I'm the parent and you do this, and you go, and you have to take that breath, remove yourself from the situation, let it cool down, all that stuff. So it's all improvisation as a parent, whether you know the terms, yes, and, or know the game, it's all that. And I guarantee you there are people who've never taken an improv class, never heard improv, who will do a replay with a child, or who will do a new choice with a child, who will do all this stuff with it, or who will distract with playing tag or a silly game like that. They'll do that as well.
We're going to close out the conversation, but I have one last question that I think builds from a lot of what we've talked about. And that is, if you're talking to a new parent and you want to give them some kind of, here's the first step. You don't have to do the whole journey yet, but what first step would you suggest to them to open their minds to this space and to being able to operate in this way?
It might be like you're going to do something, screw them up. It's okay. Do your best, like an improv scene, do your best. It might also be like really the thing of don't go down the rabbit hole of reading or going on the internet really was helpful to me because we can do that. And I had a friend who was an improv teacher who said, you've got to read the book, Happiest Baby on the Block. And it's, here are the 9 steps. And it worked for them, but it was like, it didn't work for me because each kid is different. So I would say, reach out to people who are good people, good parents, they don't even have to be parents. They could be good managers at their company. Just people respond to them and observe what they do and take from them what you can. And if it's a parent, see what works. And then also, nothing's a mistake. Look at the people who are bad parents in your opinion and don't do the things they do. Like I remember once seeing a parent who was giving their kid coffee yogurt.
Oh my God.
A child. And all the kid would eat was coffee yogurt. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to, that's one thing I'm not going to do. And again, that works for them. I don't know what's going on with it. It works for them in the sense that that's what they're doing, right? That works for them. And I have to tell myself that works for them all the time with people, but I can say, I'm not going to do that. One final thing is like, trust that you've got the instincts in you, even if you haven't had good parents, you've got the instincts in you that if you're focused on that child and what's best for them, same in an improv scene or an improv show. If you're focused on making the show or the scene go well, and that's your primary focus, then you'll never make a wrong move, ever. Guaranteed. If that's your focus. If your focus is on you and how you look, or who's in the audience, or the reaction you're going to give, or how people are going to tell you're a great parent, then you're going to make choices that aren't going to be as strong or work as well.
Focusing on your partner, thus the kid in these relationships.
Focus on them, play. What do they want to do? There are times where we've told our kids, we're on a walk, we're like, all right, the next 10 minutes, you're in charge. And they love it.
They get the agency to be able to make choices.
You yes and them. The yes and in those situations builds the trust that you're craving. You want the child to trust you. You want the respect there. If you can give away trying to be the exalted leader and trying to be the guru, which I also see with improv teachers, if you can give that away and just be like, let's see what you want to do for the next 10 minutes and build that trust and really embrace that. Yes, and I hear you and let's do it. Or sure, if you can do that, it will provide everything you need. Same with an improv scene. You can be curious, look at your partners, focus on them. All the things your ego wants will happen. You'll look twice as good. If you make them look good, you'll look twice as good. All that stuff is true if you let it happen.
Awesome. Jay, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for the time, for the insights, and for the ability to step back and not have to be the one who's exalted and the guru. I don't want to be that. And it sounds like I'm doing the right thing, not trying to do that. So
it's tiring. It's Jeremy, it's like, thank you for having me. And as I get older, I'm like, it's got to be easy. When my wife and I first met a couple years ago, the things we said to each other right off the bat, and we were in our 50s when we met, we're like, it's got to be easy. The same thing here. It's got to be easy. And if I could step back from that, it just makes it easier. In the long run, being a parent it's been easy when I've done that. There's been difficult times along the way. So like everything, there's going to be difficult times along the way. You're going to feel frustrated. You can be like, just and so angry. Let yourself feel that, but it will get easier as you go.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Jay. Anything you want to share with anybody listening about you, about your work, about how to reach out if they want to learn from you?
Oh, first of all, I think what you're doing is great. I think this will be awesome. Whatever shape or form it takes, I can't wait to see it, but it's been tremendous. Thank you for having me. If people want to follow me on social media, you could just Google my name and it pops up. I'm on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter, and who knows how long I'll be on Facebook or Instagram or any of those things. But yeah, I always love hearing from folks and staying in touch. And I love hearing also how they handle parenting situations. So having a group where you're like, oh, what do I do in this situation? I know we're in a Facebook group that is that, where it's like, and you did a great job with that, of getting together with people and saying, what do you do in this situation? I don't know what to do. I think that's a huge part of what makes successful parents, is like reaching out to people and being like, has anybody been through this situation? So yeah, stay in touch. If anybody wants to reach out, I'm very accessible.